What do you think of that? What do you think of that? How good does this look? Welcome to this episode of Something Different. We're talking about the UGEARS Mechanical Models U-9 Grand Prix car. I started building this ages ago. I did a initial video, probably, I don't know, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, I don't know, a long time ago. When I just had built the engine block and I was showing the valves and the pistons working, because if you lift, it's got a working bonnet there, well, bonnet flaps anyway, one each side, and you can see that all in there, and the rather intricate gearbox in there as well. Can you see that? Probably. The valves and the pistons, they're all supposed to move. So it's finally done. The reason it took me so long, the instructions on this UGEAR model, for the most part, were excellent. There's no words, it's just pictures, accurate pictures, and then the numbers corresponding, and you snap them off a board, a bit like snapping off a Tamiya parts tree, but the board's made of this wood, balsa wood, I think. Anyway, there was one part where the instructions were a little bit confusing, and I couldn't quite work out if it needed to use. There was a part where you got basically in here. See, underneath there you got the elastic bands beside the crankshaft. The elastic bands are really taut. Well, the actual, you're supposed to, basically there's a sort of cogs, and you've got to wire them back and forward in a sort of barrel shape and stretch them. And basically, it wasn't clear if you needed to use one or two. And I was looking at it and I was trying to do it one, and as I tried to stretch the one, it was too taut and it was damaging the wood and everything. I thought, it doesn't seem right, so I put it down for a little while, and then came at it again with a sort of fresh perspective another day. I went, okay, no, I'm trying to use two, but the problem is, since putting it down and then pick it up again, one of the little cogs, the tiny wee things, probably, I don't know, that size, was missing out of the box. I couldn't find it. I hunted for it, I couldn't find it, and there was no spares of that. There are spares of certain parts on the sort of parts tree, the parts block, whatever you want to call it, but none of them. So I was like, oh no, what am I going to do now? But shifting my room around a little bit for something completely unrelated, I did find it, so I managed to start it up again, which is why, sorry it's taken so long. I did say I was going to show everybody the final product. And the final product looks spectacular, as you can see. Basically, it's supposed to be a fully functioning model. So as you drive it along, as you push it along, all the gears are working, the cams are going, the valves are going, the pistons are going, the gearbox is spinning, the drive, you see the drive belt here on the cog, that's going, it pushes the wheels along. This one doesn't go, and I'll explain why. Basically, when I first saw this, was in John Lewis, the shop John Lewis. It was in Glasgow. I was with Rachel, and I thought it was really smart. I've never seen anything like this before, so I need to have a go at this. I really fancy having a go at this. But the one that had been built on display in John Lewis, someone had made a real half-arsed job of it. The thing looked terrible. The wheels were all drooping. They were sort of either they were totally cambered in or they were totally cambered out. They were all inconsistent. They were drooping. The whole chassis seemed to have a droop to it, and all the components were sagging and stuff. Basically, someone had rushed build it and didn't build it properly, and it was all loose and horrible. And I figured, right, I am not doing that. I'm going to be able to build it as tight as possible to make it look as good as possible, which meant I've left zero tolerance for any movement, really. So, for example, this part here is almost like see this little tab? It's almost like a brake, a parking brake or something. You're supposed to push that across, and that's supposed to engage the gearbox, I think. But I can't push it. I could probably put enough force to push it, but I'm almost at the point where I'm putting enough force to break this rather flimsy, weak wood, and I don't want to damage it. Quite early on in the build, it was quite evident that the way I was building it, with everything really tight, with all the tolerances really tight, it wasn't going to be free running enough to function properly. For example, this is the gear stick here, and you can change it. It's in drive right now. You put it in neutral or reverse, so I can push it forward right? But if I try and push it backwards, it locks. Which is all good, fine, absolutely happy with that. I like the way, look at the way the drive cog, see it spinning away. But at the end of the day, this was going to be a display model, and I wanted it to be as tight and well built and solid as possible as a display model, because it's all well and good seeing the thing move around and stuff. That's quite novel, but quite soon the novelty wears off and you're just left with a display model. I wanted a display model that was solid, so that's what I've done. So I'm sorry if that disappoints some people. To tell you how it should function, the steering wheel here should activate the steering, and it does a little bit if I really force it, but I don't want to really force it. The pistons and cogs should move up and down. The pistons and the valves and everything should move up and down. I think it's because this tab isn't across that it won't do that. Although I can move the wheels, the engine doesn't move. The engine stays solid, so that's, you know, it's probably part of it. But yes, that's the decision I made when I was building it. I wanted it to be solid, so there we are. Because at the end of the day, if you want to see something moving, I have more than a dozen RC cars. This is not going to be, I mean, it's all nice and seeing everything move on the inside, but I also have a real car, 2 real cars to admire that. So it's very all well and good. If I was to build another one, I'd probably build a steam locomotive, and in that case I probably would, yeah, I probably would build it with a little bit more gaps, a little less tight, a little more play in the parts that I can actually enjoy it moving around. But look, the suspension at the front works, so that's good. Yeah, so it's supposed to have all this working in here, all the cogs, the drive wheels, the gear stick supposed to I mean, that's held in by a little it's almost like little cocktail sticks. So that, if I put any force in that, that's going to snap. So don't want to do that. The pistons, as I said, you probably see it's got a crank to start it. You put it in there, and it's supposed to turn all the pistons and everything. Again, it's locked solid. And there was a cup, like a trophy, a Grand Prix trophy. I had no interest in having that on display, so I didn't bother building that. So yes, overall it was an enjoyable build. If you're thinking about doing something like this, the UGEARS stuff is always really beautifully detailed. It's really intricate, really nice. Bear in mind, it's a time sink. I mean, there's probably more than a dozen hours, I would say. It's a long build. And it can be quite disheartening when you've worked on it for hours and find you've only done 2 or 3 pages and you've still got most of the booklet left to go. So it's for people with patience. It's not for people who want a quick thing and a quick result. There's a few things I really like it overall. There's a few things I'm not too happy about, and this is just to let you know if you're thinking about building something like this. As I said, there are some spare parts, but some of the smaller, more intricate, more delicate parts, there were no spares for. For example, the little donut-shaped circles, like the one I lost and found again. You've got to push it over like a square block that you push it over, and then it pops across. But because the circle was so small and the central square hole was quite large in comparison, there was very little material around the outside, so if you try and force it through, some of them would crack. For example, they didn't have any spares. It'd be better if some things like those had spares for them. The other thing is, see the seat here? I don't know if you can see the seat. The seat, if I move the crank, the seat's cracked here. There. Is it there? There. This part cracked. It's all supposed to be one piece all the way around, and it's all very flexible. It comes out like that, and you fold it and then put it in, and which is all well and good. It was working well, but the way the instructions said to put it in was because it has the 2 blocks to push in, and then it has 2 tabs that stretch over the front like claws, and they said on the instructions put the blocks in first, but then the claws were several millimeters too short to then snap over. So I was like, well, but it did say that in the instructions. It said number 1 push down, number 2 stretch over. So I was trying to do that, and that as a result snapped it. So I went screw the instructions and did it the way I wanted to with the claws first, and drew it back, and then plugged it in, and it worked. So I mean, it was an effort either way, because I did try that first of all because it made more sense to me, but I couldn't get it to work straight away. And then the way the instructions did it, I can't see working at all. So that was a bit of a concern. Yeah, a few little finicky things that not. Oh, something's just come off. Look at that. Now, has this snapped? Yes, it's not snapped all the way through, but this tiny little intricate part has just on camera. It's come from the cog. See, it's one of the teeth on the cog. Now that's a problem because I don't have the parts anymore, and I'll explain why in a second. Because once you're done building one of these U-gear model things, I've got to say, all the leftover pieces of wood and all the materials and everything make fantastic kindling. So that's where all mine went. I don't actually have those parts anymore. That'll sit there quite happy as long as I don't move it around. Again, this is a static display model, so I'm not too fussed about that. But here's the thing. Should you buy one? That's the question. If you're interested in buying this, should you buy this sort of thing? Well, I don't think I'll build another one. But it's not a reflection on this. I just don't know where on earth I'm going to put this thing. It was sort of blood rush to the head going, that's cool, I want it. And I knew I don't really have any space left in the house. I've got no idea what I'm going to do with this. I have nowhere to display this one on its own right now. So, yeah, if I was to have a nice, I don't know, maybe a bigger house with a nice area to display things, I would maybe tackle another one, maybe a steam engine or something. If you like this sort of thing, you like building kits, airfix kits or whatever, this is something different, I think you would enjoy it. It's glue free. It takes a long time if you want to do it properly because it comes with a small section of sandpaper, and as you snap things, a bit like when you snap things off a Tamiya tree and you leave burrs, it's the same thing. There's all these little bits of wood sticking out, so you sand it all down. By the time I built it, I mean I did it with every single component to make it all nice and smooth. By the time I'd finished building this thing, that piece of sandpaper was completely smooth. There was no sandpaper left on it, basically. But yeah, I think if you're the sort of person who likes this sort of thing, likes building things, likes getting hands-on with little projects and things, I think you'd enjoy these things. This thing was around about £45-ish. Can't really remember the price. There are more expensive ones. The steam locomotives are bigger and more expensive. They're near 70, I think. But it's something completely different. It's certainly a conversation piece and it grabs people's attention. And it just looks great. I love this sort of exposed workings of it, exposed machinery, but at the same time it does look like a race-ready wooden Grand Prix car. Yeah. I would say yes. I would say try it, yeah. I would absolutely recommend you would try building one of these things, but just, you know, bear in mind what I've said about the small intricate parts. Bear in mind what I said about if you do build it really tight and really accurate, it then locks the machinery up because you need to have that little bit of play. Now there is a piece of sort of waxy crayon that came with it that you use to lubricate parts to slide past each other. I didn't use any of that because, as I've said before on RC, any waxy, oily, greasy surface is just going to be an absolute dirt and dust magnet. And this is going to sit here on display. Even if it was working and it was like fully moving and everything, I'd go, look at that, it's really cool. And then I'd go on display because it's a display item. I mean, that novelty, like I said, would run off really quickly. In which case, you'd just have this thing gathering dust and it would stick to all the bits. Right now, you could dust it off and the dust would just blow off. But if you have all these engine parts were all greased up and everything and oiled up or whatever you want to call it, waxed up, you're never going to get it clean again. It's just going to get all grey and furry and horrible. So I didn't want to do that. But that won't have any part to play because there's no movement here. There's no tolerances at all here, the way I built it. So that's not going to make any difference. I like it though. Looks cool. Where on earth am I going to put it? Well, that's a problem I've got to sort out. And it's a problem I reckon you should try and sort out as well, because I reckon you should try one of these UGEARS thing. Why not? If you're watching this channel, which you are currently watching this channel, you are the sort of person who this sort of thing's aimed at. So, you know, have at it. In the meantime, I have an Airfix Spitfire to build. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon. Bye bye.